Tensions are escalating between Israel and Canada after Ottawa criticized the war in Gaza alongside France and Britain.
I say to President Macron, Prime Minister Carney, and Prime Minister Starmer, when mass murderers, rapists, baby killers, and kidnappers thank you, you're on the wrong side of justice. You're on the wrong side of humanity.
That's Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stating after the three countries threaten consequences if Israel continues what they called a disappropriate campaign in Gaza. Now Israel's pushing forward with its ground offensive, warning Palestinians to evacuate from 14 different regions, but to where? Israel says about 100 aid trucks entered Gaza yesterday, but the UN says 600 are needed daily. For more, I am joined by retired Major General David Fraser, CTV News military expert. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you, Anne-Marie.
It's not just Canada. Of course, Prime Minister Netanyahu mentioning the other two countries as well that have issued statements. They are facing increased international pressure to stop this offensive. The country is on the verge of losing trade deals with the UK and the EU. They are right now in the middle of ceasefire talks with Qatar and the US. Why are they still pushing forward in this offensive?
Well, first of all, Israel for the second time is having a major offensive into Gaza because they've yet to be able to solve the Hamas problem, and they've yet to get back their hostages that are still there. So the first operation wasn't successful, and the second operation is underway, and it's exceptionally blunt, to say the least. And the people who are caught in the middle are the Palestinians, and that's what, the three countries were protesting against and putting a lot of pressure on the Israeli government to separate Hamas from the innocent Palestinians. And here we are still fighting a war years later.
Israel is telling Palestinians to leave the north. Millions, we know, have been displaced. They've dealt with a 2-month blockade on aid and food. So no food, no fuel, no medical aid. Where will Palestinians go, and how will they receive aid under this new offensive? And to remind everybody, like when they went back north after leaving Rafah, most of the north had been destroyed because of this war. So when they tell them to leave, are they telling them where to go?
Well, the Israeli government has given the Palestinians mission impossible. There is nowhere to go. They told them, to leave out of the areas of the first offensive. Now in the second offensive, they tell them to leave, but there's nowhere to go. And this is why the criticism is so vehemently against the Israeli government, that they're actually putting the Palestinians in a mission, impossible, and really just sowing the seeds for Hamas to continue this fight. Because there's no diplomatic effort right now to try to resolve this. It's only violence, and violence is not going to solve the problem in Gaza.
Netanyahu has said he was open to a temporary ceasefire, but one of the conditions, of course, is the voluntary immigration of Palestinians. So how are the neighboring countries and the G7 countries responding to this?
And again, the Israeli prime minister is asking for the impossible. President Trump suggested this, but none of the neighboring countries want any of these people. It doesn't solve the problem. It just pushes the problem somewhere else. And Israel's got to find a solution where they've got to find, how they can live together with Palestinians and Israelis, but separate Hamas. Let's get it. Hamas is a terrorist organization. You got to separate Hamas from the innocent population, and there's no effort from the Israelis to try to do that.
Netanyahu said he had believed Israel had most likely killed the Hamas leader. So without its leader, how much more of a threat does Hamas pose to Israel right now?
Well, unfortunately, every Hamas fighter or leader they kill, they actually probably create another one because, again, from the Palestinians' point of view, they're not getting humanitarian support. Their lives have been destroyed. Their houses have been destroyed. There's probably an awful lot of resentment against the Israelis, Israeli government, not Israelis, but the Israeli government for what they're doing. So this is just, it's a dog chasing its tail. It's never going to end.
Well, let me ask you about then. Of course, Canada among the group of G7 leaders to threaten sanctions. It doesn't seem to be having an influence on what Israel's military decisions are. So is there any more that the international community can do? At the end of the day, this is Israel's decision.
Yeah, Anne-Marie, you're absolutely right. It is an Israeli decision, but at the same time, countries like Canada, United Kingdom and France can stand up for, the innocent people there and show the world, and Israel what is right and wrong. And what we're saying is, don't go after innocent people. Do something about the Hamas situation. But how Israel is going about doing it is not what we all aspire to be. And so this is, again, just a diplomatic exchange. And, we'll see where it goes.
Well, one more last question for you, David, and that is the fact that, Israel, as you describe Hamas, Israel is protecting itself against Hamas. And there are you mentioned other ways to do that, but then what are the other ways? I think that's what the international community wonders, is what are the other options?
Well, I think the option is to sit down with, the Palestinians and start separating Hamas from the innocent Palestinians, and you're going to have to do it. It's going to be a complicated discussion. There's an awful lot of animosity between both sides, but fighting is not going to solve this. It's going to be a diplomatic solution at the end, and I'm not saying a two-state solution, but they got to start talking and about providing humanitarian aid and separating Hamas from the innocent people, and that can only be done by talking, not just fighting.
Retired Major General David Fraser, our CTV News military expert. We always appreciate your expert insight. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.